Here you are. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
It's 10 o'clock in Japan, in Tokyo right now, and we're starting the KMD Student Voices info session. We're going to be 4 PhD students with you today. I'm Harry. If you guys want, let's quickly introduce ourselves, right? I'm a second-year PhD student at Embodied Media, focusing on interactive space design.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, please.
I'm Silvana Malaver. I'm starting my second year of the doctoral program this April. And I make art installations that interact with biosignals.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Yuehui Yang and I'm a third year PhD student and I'm in real project called Play, and my research is about co-create music with audience or participants. So it's kind of a music related research. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Xu Cong. I'm the third year student, doctoral student of Keio. I'm now researching about video games, networks, and sensors.
I forgot to mention my real project, sorry. My real project is Geist.
Okay. So before we start diving into the topics, let's do a quick intro of our backgrounds, right? Because I think that's a lot of people want to think about that when joining KMD. What did we do before KMD? What's where we come from, what we studied, what we worked on before, and what brought us to KMD. Silvana, you want to start?
Sure. So I'm from Colombia, and yeah, my background is kind of I've passed through many different fields. First, I studied literature and art, and then I did a master in Japan, but in another university on cultural studies, and then I entered KMD. So yeah, that's for me.
Great. How about you, Hui?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in China, and before I come to KMD, I was majored in music composition, and I got my master's degree from California Institute of the Arts. So I'm kind of like a music person. I make music a lot. Yeah.
And Xu?
Yeah, I'm from China as well, and I finished my undergraduate in China as well. So my background perhaps is not related to media or design. My background was economic and finance. But I think after I graduated from undergraduate, I think I am interested in video games and Japanese pop culture and something like that. And that's the reason I came to Japan, and also what brought me to KMD is also that reason, because there's some kind of research of pop culture and the video games here in KMD. And it is also what I'm doing now.
Yeah. And just a short one from my side. I come from Greece, and my background is in architecture and filmmaking. So my first degree was in architectural engineering, and right after that, I had a one-year study in filmmaking and actually worked in the filmmaking industry before going back to architecture for another master's degree in design research methodology, which led me to Japan and media design. So trying to kind of combine my two previous disciplines of design and media naturally, led me to media design in Tokyo. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Diverse.
So, yeah, that's a typical KMD student, all of us, right? I think no one's the same. Everybody comes from a different background, and lots of us from multiple backgrounds. So that's definitely a trait of KMD, I think, right? Or places like KMD. We're not having any questions so far from the chat, so we might as well just start in talking about a series of topics that we've prepared for the audience today, right? I think we pretty much touched on that in the previous introduction, but we could actually talk more about why we chose KMD specifically, because lots of us may have applied for other universities or other countries as well, or why Japan and why KMD specifically in Japan. Anybody has an answer that they want to share?
Maybe can I start first?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I got my master's degree in the US. So before I graduate, I feel like the culture background is a big thing for me. So I'm like seeking I'm trying to like look at different environments to live and to study. So I considered about a lot of different countries. For example, stay to the US or maybe move to the Europe and also the Asian countries. And so one of my friends mentioned with me that Japan has the government, they have a English program they call like the super university program. I can't remember that name. And like
global university, right?
Yeah, the global super university kind of that thing. And she said like you can still use English to take lessons or to communicate or yes, with the professors. And so I thought, oh, that's good. So I don't need to spend a lot of time to learning a different language. And so I started to like search online. And so what kind of the program the universities they provide. And then I see KMD. I think, oh my God, so this program or this school is fantastic, because I saw the kind of the list of our professors and also their backgrounds. And I see like we have a lot of different people or different professors and different students, like all from different backgrounds, like the four of us. But we're in the same school, but we don't have the same major. So I thought, oh, maybe this is a place that I can kind of blow my mind. And also like kind of, I'm going to learn a lot of different things from other people. So I'm interested in this school. And also I contacted my supervisor and also the professors. And so he introduced me about how KMD is and what kind of things you can do here. And so to be honest, the KMD was my only choice. And so, yeah, and also this school is KMD, the school is in Japan. So it's like quite near from my home country. And also the cultural background are much more similar with the country I grew up in. So that's why I'm here. Yeah.
Pretty comprehensive, yeah.
I feel if I can go on, that for me was kind of the opposite reason. I wanted something completely different from my culture.
Same.
So I'm from Colombia. I'm literally from the other extreme of the other side of the globe, and I picked Japan first, right? So I looked for scholarship opportunities, and I got the next scholarship. And then I started, just looking for different. As I was saying earlier, I started. I did my master's first in another university on humanities and social sciences, cultural studies. Because I was interested in the culture, and it was only then that I say like, okay, no, I actually don't want to only stay in the humanities, but create, to make art. And KMD was the perfect place because I was looking to many universities here, that art universities, for example, but there was not exactly an English program. And KMD had because I don't speak enough Japanese to have to make a program in English, in Japanese. So that's why I picked it. It looks so interdisciplinary, and what I wanted to do was also quite what I am doing right now. It's quite interdisciplinary. So that openness was also very appealing. I feel it's one of the highlights of KMD. You can basically do anything you want.
That's true. How about you?
Yeah, the reason brought me to Japan is quite simple. I played a lot of Japanese video games. I watch a lot of Japanese anime. So I'm very interested in Japanese culture. So I think I came to Japan, I think in 2016. I joined the language program of Keio. I learned Japanese for a year, but unfortunately I did not speak Japanese that well. So I'm looking for if there's any graduate school is researching about Japanese pop culture, and it's available in English. And then I found KMD. So that's why I chose KMD.
We're just getting a question from the chat right now that people are asking if there are any other universities in Japan that you applied to. I guess all of us. Any other? I think Yuhui mentioned that she only applied for KMD, right?
Yes, because KMD is like all in all the program I search online, so it is the only one that matches with my background well. So this KMD was my only choice. I didn't apply for any other Japanese universities.
And Silvana, you mentioned that you picked KMD primarily because of the English language of the program, right?
Yeah, exactly. I also for the PhD for this sort of more for media programs or art related or just KMD. I just applied for KMD.
And Shu, the same?
Actually, I also applied for other universities, including Waseda University. There's also an international English program about international culture. I also applied for that. But KMD is my first choice, since I can research about pop culture in Japan. So that's my first choice, and that's the reason why I'm here.
Just to give my 2 cents too on this, I also applied to Kyushu University and Kyoto Institute of Technology. And although I got admitted to both of those, I decided to go for KMD for pretty much similar reasons from what all of you mentioned. I'm also a MEXT sponsored student like Silvana, and that also made it easier for Keio for sure. And in any case, I felt that although I had some Japanese before coming to Japan, it's definitely not enough to do a full academic study in Japanese. So knowing that the program is offered in English is something that really made me gravitate towards KMD. And also the profile of the school, which is, I'm not really sure of the percentage of international students in other schools in Japan or other top global universities in that consortium. But I did my master's degree first in Keio Media Design, and then I continued to PhD. And throughout the master's degree, I think a change happened in KMD demographics for the first time in KMD history. There were slightly more international students than Japanese students. And although there are 2 batches, like the April batch, when typically Japanese or Japanese-speaking students join, which starts in April, and the September batch, as we call it, which usually people from abroad, foreign students join because it's in English, and sometimes also Japanese or other people as well too. And I think it's around a 50-50 percentage of Japanese and international students in KMD, and also some foreign faculty members. And that makes a pretty good balance, I think, cultural balance within KMD, which I think it's a unique trait in KMD, as far as I understand in Japan. And we're getting another question that KMD is open to many projects involving design, like service design as an example. Definitely, yes. I think there are projects dedicated to service design. I think Itoma is doing like that, headed by Chihiro Sato sensei. And well, as Silvana said, you can pretty much do anything in KMD pertaining to media interaction, experience design, service design, lots of different things. So every different project has a different flavor, so to speak, within KMD. You can go more design oriented or more creative or more technical if you wish, or human computer interaction. And so it depends on the direction you want to go. And I think it was mentioned before that we learn just as much from our peers, from our collaborators in KMD, because we're all, you usually work in a team with different backgrounds and different expertises of people, right? It's not like you're at a computer science course and everybody's studying computer science, so everybody's doing the same stuff. So that's what is really mind expanding about studying in KMD, I think, that you can learn not only from the academic course itself and from the faculty, but also from your collaborators and your peers. And as far as the future career paths that people are asking for, that's a very wide question, because graduates of KMD, we've seen in the years, have been going on to working to anything from academia and research to startups, multinational companies, like consulting, you name it. I mean, really, there's so many different ways that this can lead, depending on how you're going to aim your studies and how you're going to frame your subject, right? I think
as diverse as our backgrounds, like really, there's everything. People has done everything, and
pretty much, yeah. Also because I guess the domain that KMD is dealing with is very, very wide in itself. It's not just one industry, right? We're not doing, you can do projects in KMD that have to do with mobility, with healthcare, with sustainability, with food industry, with entertainment, with anything really, depending on how you will tackle it. So I'm guessing depending on your targeting and your research, this will lead you to a totally different path from your peers, and you're going to be targeting different companies or aiming for different positions after graduation. Yeah. Sorry about that.
And I also think like asking for the future career path is kind of based on the personal interest, because I have some friends, or I know some senpais, like they already graduated from KMD. So some of them, they're more like research people. So maybe they keep their kind of doing the research and becoming a researcher for the seeking for more possibilities. And some of them are decided to join the industry related with their research. So I think it's kind of more based on their personal interest. But yeah, we have a lot of possibilities when we graduate from the school.
What would you guys have in mind? What would you like to do after you graduate? Here, the four of us.
Personally,
sure.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
It's a
Personally,
hard
I'm
question.
interested in
It's really a
interaction
hard
design.
question.
Yeah. It depends. One good thing is also that KMD gives you the chance to think about that before you graduate, because there are a lot of collaborations going on with external stakeholders like companies and funding involved and things like that, which actually, and that's why they're called real projects, because we're not just designing something in school, but very often we're working with external stakeholders or companies or collaborators, and who have real, who are companies that have a real product out in the market and they want to improve it, or a service, or innovate in some way. So we engage in a process of thinking about the actual, requirements of deploying services and products into the market. And oftentimes, a lot of graduates end up joining those companies sometimes, or interning in those companies during their research period. In my case, I had a collaboration with Panasonic OGLab for a research project, joint research project about interactive environments, which was key in what I did in my master's research and continuing in my PhD research. And coming from architecture, I think I'm interested in the spatial scale of experience design, and more on companies that do interaction design and experience design. And that can range from anything from, working like design consultancies that work with companies that want to improve their existing services or products, or even what has increasingly becoming the application of media art and these kind of work into the branding domain. Because a lot of companies are shifting towards that. Like traditional branding has been embracing, real-time experiences and interactive art, and we're seeing that at least in Japan and globally as well. So there's one direction, for example. Any other ideas? What are you guys thinking of after graduation?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this question since I'm the third year student, perhaps I'm going to graduate next or the next year. I'm thinking what I'm going to do after my graduation. So actually, I'm still wondering if I'm going back to China or I'm going to stay in Japan. But I think I probably will be going to do something related to games. And that's what I'm interested in. What I'm researching now is also about games. So I think hopefully I may join some companies related to video games, or perhaps I may start my own business if it's possible. I'm still thinking what should be my future.
Of course, why not? Everything is possible, right? Silvana, what about you?
Yeah, I'm still finishing my first year, so everything is really open. But actually, I would like to stay in the academy. Yeah, it has like a certain freedom. Everything has its pros and cons, of course, but I like being a researcher. So I might stay at least for a postdoc. I don't know. That's now. Maybe next week I change. But
yeah,
there's that possibility. And I think that's the point.
That's good. Yeah, Hui?
Yes, I'm kind of holding the same feeling with Savannah. So right now I'm more expecting to be a researcher after I graduate from school, but maybe I'm gonna change my mind at that time. So I can't say it right now.
Would you stay in Japan?
Probably, but I'm also considering to go back to China because to be honest, we have a kind of the growing market for the multimedia design or something related with this area. So probably go back to China is also a choice for me. Yeah, to pursue my career or to keep doing the research.
That's good. Do you guys and girls want to talk more specifically what we each of our PhD research is about? Maybe that gives an insight to the audience that's listening to us, right?
Yeah.
Let's try and find the sweet spot between specific and understandable, because some of the stuff we usually do are on a PhD level, maybe too specific for a general audience, but let's just try and communicate what it is that we're working on. Who wants to go first for that?
How about you?
Yeah, okay, I'll go first. No problem. So I've been working on a project that's the continuation of my master's studies in KMD. And I've been focusing on, more specifically, my PhD is about the effects of perceived animacy in interactive architectural spaces. So if we can make spaces interactive in such a way that they give the audience or the user the impression or the feeling that they are alive and not just responsive, so that they engage in behaviors that are interactive in a feedback loop with the user in a meaningful way, how would that actually influence people's behavior and perception of the space? That's pretty much what I'm working on in my PhD. And it includes physical prototyping at a spatial scale, so kinetic environments, shape-shifting environments. And also recently, because that's a topic we'll touch on later on as well, how COVID-19 and the pandemic has affected the way we do research. I've also shifted into more digital workflows and a more digital counterpart of what I'm working on, because physical prototyping in large teams during the pandemic has been difficult. I can tell you that for sure. That's pretty much what I'm working on, yeah, as a PhD.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, I got both my bachelor's and master's degree in music composition. So my research I'm doing right now is still related with music. But to be honest, after learning composition for several years, I observed a very interesting phenomena. So I feel like maybe is it possible to do something that to improve the relationship between the musicians and non-musicians? So the research I'm doing right now is trying to introduce the co-creation, the thinking into music composition. So also combined with human computer interaction, I'm trying to find a way for non-musicians to like participate into the process of making music, instead of only like listening to music, to receiving messages derived from the like the musicians. And so I'm trying to create an environment or the system for the non-musicians like to like co-create music, and maybe also trying to enhance their experience of music through this way. So that's kind of the research I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Silvana or Shu?
Shall I go next?
Or both?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm now researching about video games. Actually, I started a master's in KMD as well. So I can say my research now is kind of a continuation of my master's research. So in my master's, I'm researching about how to offer players a more immersive gaming experience with sensors on the smartphone. So for example, the game will detect the environment around the players with sensors, and then the environment in the game will be changed depending on the environment around the player. So for now, for my PhD research, so I'm pushing my master's research forward, focusing on using games to create a bidirectional connection between the game world and the real world, with the network, with the IoT devices and sensors on the smartphone. So this is what I'm researching now.
Silvana?
A lot of technology at KMD.
Yeah. Oh.
But not all, the majority of the projects is true, use technology, but not all of them, just for people to know. In my case, I am very interested in exploring the connection between mind and body and exploring consciousness. So everything starts from kind of an abstract conceptual interest. But what I'm doing right now is creating art installations in which the interaction works through biosignals. So through the breath or through the heart rate. And just so far I'm just experimenting, and I want to kind of, since I'm from the humanities, I have like a lot of knowledge of how to develop a research on philosophy, on like the more conceptual part. But right now I want to learn more about working with data, the biosignal data, and also like from the scientific field. So what I'm kind of mixing philosophy, art, well-being, to not say science because that's too big, maybe, learning a little bit different tools to work with, technology, like a bit of Arduino programming, like hardware programming, Unity programming. But it's just, I'm learning. So right now at my stage, I'm kind of getting some skills, some skills that I didn't have before, to then kind of develop the ideas I have. So far it's pretty much that. It's probably gonna change in the next years.
That's also part of PhD, learning the skills that you need, because oftentimes we need to do something so specific, and also that requires a combination of different fields, and it's usually impossible to know everything you need in advance. So part of creating what you want to create at a PhD is learning the tools that will enable you to create that too, I think. I
have the similar feeling. So since I'm researching about games, I need to create my own prototype. But before I joined KMD, I have no knowledge about how to program. So I have to learn it myself, learn how to use Unity 3D to create a game. So it's also a learning process, just as Silvana said.
Yeah, at this program, we don't have classes. We can, if we want to take them, but we don't have. But it's more, for me at least, it's very self-directed. It depends a lot on what you decide to do. But then you can, of course, develop those skills, those new skills that you might not have. But you can also collaborate with people. You can ask other professors. And it's a combination of all of those things. Sometimes you participate in someone else's idea. Sometimes you have your own idea and you want people to join you, and so on.
Yes, and also, school has a lot of different resources for us to use, and to also to explore the more possibility of your interest. So that's the one thing I think is best. One of the best thing I think KMD can provide.
There's one question we've gotten from the chat. If so, how could KMD help students in terms of job seeking in Japan? I think we sort of touched on that before, right? That KMD being quite well connected with the company sector in Japan and also the public sector. I think most of the collaborations are online. You can check the website and see them. It often serves as an introduction for students, both Japanese and internationals, to the Japanese market, understand what companies want, what kind of companies are there, what kind of positions are open. So in that sense, there's kind of, I would say maybe sometimes, depending on your case, a smooth transition. As I said, a lot of alumni have been directly joining companies they worked with on a research project. I wouldn't say this is what happens all the time, but this is definitely an outcome that happens from KMD. As Silvana mentioned before, it's very research and collaboration oriented. And it's possible, that's a difference between the master's and the PhD program, because the master's program is shorter, of course, than the PhD. And especially the first half of it is very, very intense in terms of there's a very high amount of information that gets delivered to you in a short period of time. That's the innovation pipeline course. The design thinking process, basic coding skills, Arduino skills, prototyping skills, so many different things, business design, service design. And then you start thinking about your own thesis. But the PhD is a more, as always, I think, solitary path, right? There are no courses that are prerequisites apart from your own research, which you will be working on. So that leaves it open for you to work with other people in their projects, have them working in your projects. A lot of time people try to form their research in a way that they can both work together on projects that, it's very clear whose research is what, and then advance together. Sometimes that creates opportunities to collaborate with companies as well. And that's what leads to lots of people understanding what they really want to do, maybe towards the end of their studies, I think. Because once you're in KMD, you're usually exposed to a number of different things, which could be connected to a number of different disciplines. Like you could be working on the UX, UI, for example, the UX experience, the user experience or the user interface of a game design. But that could be two different jobs in two different industries, UX design, UI design, and game design, right? You would apply separate for those with a different CV and different portfolio. But in KMD, you could be working on both things in the same project. So that's why usually it's towards the end of some projects in your studies that you can clearly see that, yeah, I worked on that, but I think I'll be more interested in doing this professionally. And then depending on the timing and the market, people apply and get jobs. Definitely KMD has been helping, I think, in this aspect.
I think it's more like what I felt so far. You need to ask. What do you want? And there's very likely one of the professors, if knows something, has something to do with whatever you want to do. And but the thing is, you need to go and look for it. It's not like well, no, I mean, of course there's many cases of people like that just like receive directly like an offer or something like that, but there's not like a a system. Maybe I'm wrong, but in other universities, there's like a, I don't know, like a platform with jobs and they offer. I don't know. Am I wrong?
I think what I'm understanding from what you're saying, Silvana, is that in most cases in KMD, because it's not a school that does one thing that has a very obvious output to the market. Like you studied, for example, accounting, you will be an accountant, so you will apply to accounting companies. It's not a one-way path, and it's not a clear path. And most of us have to actually carve the path ourselves, little by little, understanding, digging through your studies, understanding what is the specific area that you're interested in, where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses. Definitely academia is a place to grow, is a place where you can, have the space and time to learn and grow skills. And maybe if you realize you're not good at this, but you want to go in this direction, you can work in that, which oftentimes you don't have, when you're working, you don't have the time and the resources to do that because you're focused on work. That being said, I'm not sure if Keio has, I think there is a system online for applying to jobs as well. Yeah.
Yes.
And connecting with job fairs and recruiters. Our audience may or may not know that Japan has a very specific job hunting process and system, depending on what you're targeting. But the majority of Japanese companies, especially large companies and corporations, you go on the so-called shukatsu, like job hunting process, almost 1 year before your actual graduation. And it's a very specific process that you need to follow. This has been maybe changing because some of the newer companies showing up, or startups, or more international companies, they tend to hire all year round and not be so specific on the April hiring season of shukatsu. But that also depends on what you want to do and what you're aiming at professionally after. That's for sure.
Yes, and I don't know if I should mention this because in KMD, most of the times we are working with other students or the faculties. Like it's really a very friendly environment. So some of the students, they already graduate from school and maybe they join some companies, and at the season, they will send some of the career informations in our Slack channel, and to see if any students are interested in. So this can also be a resource that you kind of start your career. So I don't know if I should mention this, but I think it's also a possibility.
Definitely.
So we have this kind of friendly environment. So everybody's trying to help, and
it's what one of our professors, Sunohara Sensei, says at the crash course in the master's degree. Welcome to KMD. You can enter KMD, but you can never leave KMD. In a funny way, he's joking that, meaning that it's sort of a family. It's a very tight knit community, and it's as many people as there are inside. It's actually a small place. I mean, you pretty much know everyone by the time you've spent a year there. You've seen and know most of the people from their first names, especially through the master's degree, where you mingle with most people. And in that sense, you're always part of the KMD Facebook group, the Slack channels, and the entire network of KMD from your lab and the KMD. And very often, as Yahui said, we do have opportunities dropped by alumni saying the company I'm working at is looking for this and this and this. Anybody wants to apply? And lots of people have found jobs that way too, through KMD. Yeah. So it's important. You see how that everything is interconnected, right? Working with teams, getting to know people. There's a network of people that at the right time can actually help with opportunities. No other questions for the time being from the chat. So what about we go a bit deeper and talk about the challenges and advantages of working in KMD specifically as an academic environment? How is it different than an average, whatever that might mean, average university? Like KMD is kind of a special place, kind of a hybrid place, right? In terms of how people are working, especially because people from different cultural backgrounds and also expertises are joining in projects. And this is a learning process for everyone and a growing process for everyone. I would say, if I could start with that one, that one challenge definitely is communication, And by that, I don't mean the language, of course. I mean understand cultural communication, right? Is finding a common ground because we're usually multinational teams, and understanding, the commonalities and how to work efficiently together is something that usually takes time in the beginning. This is something that the master's program facilitates with, because you have the chance to work in smaller projects, quicker projects, like a few weeks or a month or something, not a year, in smaller teams, and then change to a different team, and then change to a different team, which I think helps all of us develop those intercultural communication skills and understand how to approach and tackle problems while being inclusive in teams as well. That's a challenge in the beginning. And I would say the second challenge I would see would be learning really fast, exactly what you need to get going. It's difficult to focus sometimes because we are exposed to a huge amount of information in KMD and technical requirements to do the works that we do. As Silvana said, very often technology is involved in what we do. Not always or not necessarily, but it quite ends up being that if you're talking about the average KMD project. And that involves us having to learn really, really fast, pick up in a few weeks or days even some skills to solve a very specific problem, do exactly what we want. Which, for example, if you learn, Arduino in a few days to solve what you want, that doesn't make you an engineer. Or if you learn a game engine in just a week to solve your problem, that doesn't make you a game designer. But that opens a door for you to understand if you like working in that environment, if you like doing that thing, and maybe that leads to you focusing on that skill and developing more down that path, which eventually leads to what we were talking before, applying, finding your career path through the projects and through KMD. One advantage on the other side would be that KMD gives you the flexibility to switch these roles really often. So, try your skills and fail often, as they say, meaning that failing leads you to learning, right? If something didn't happen well, didn't go as planned, then you understand why. And by analyzing, you understand why, and you proceed. And I think one advantage of working in the team environment of KMD and in different teams is that you can have a safe space, not always when it's ambitions time, because you have to run, but the average, I think, semester, you have the safe space to grow and learn skills. Also ask help from your peers. And if you see that maybe this discipline or this specific skill is not something I'm interested in, then you can just change and switch to a different thing, or give value to another project by contributing some skills that you have. For example, if you're good at design, or if you're good at coding, good at prototyping, any of that. And lastly, another advantage is what I already mentioned, and we talked about that, the connection with the market, that KMD is quite connected to the market, meaning that what we do does not remain in the sphere of ideation and speculation, but very often is applied and very often is deployed in real situations with real companies. And I think that's a very characteristic trait of KMD, in my opinion. Now, that's what I would see as advantages, as obvious pros and cons of advantages and disadvantages, or challenges, if you want.
Yeah, I agree with Harry. So I think the biggest challenge could be you have a lot of things you need to learn in KMD. So if you're carrying out a real project, this project may involve many different fields of technology. So some of them you may not be familiar with, so you need to learn it by yourself. Although there are some classes in KMD, you can take those classes and to learn those technology, but somehow you need to learn it by yourself. But I think that is also the advantages of KMD. So we have students from many different backgrounds. So if you are not familiar with this field, so perhaps your classmates are. You can ask your classmates, and we have professors from different backgrounds. You may also communicating with your teachers. They are going to give you some advice or help. And actually, I know some students, they have their own they have their own business already. So that could be also helpful. So as far as I know, there were two classmates of mine. They just started their own business before they joined KMD. So that could be helpful as well, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, so more possibility also means more challenge. Maybe you will learn the process of how to kind of grow up or to do your research by this kind of challenge.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think it's always this double thing. Like I was mentioning earlier, and it's a bit in everything that you're saying. It's very free. Like you can do whatever you want, but at the same time, like nobody, at least in my experience, is gonna tell you what to do. So sometimes you're gonna feel very lost. I feel very lost right now, for example, which I like because it means like I can experiment, I can explore, but it's also stressful sometimes. It produces certain anxiety, and of course you are sometimes excited but afraid that you might like maybe spend your time doing something and then it doesn't go well, and it's like life. But
I think you're opening a very important topic here, Silvana, right? Talk more about mental and physical health during PhD studies, right?
Yeah, I think that's very important, and it's maybe as like people that is interested in studying here might not be thinking right now about that. They might be thinking about like entrance exams and the application, and of course that's very important. But actually, I think to kind of envision yourself in like, okay, what is actually being there and being a PhD student? It's also important. So that's why I wanted to ask you guys about how your PhD research has influenced your mental and physical health. Big question, I know.
I think on top of that, we should also consider the special circumstances of the pandemic. I mean, PhD research is very challenging to begin with, but it has been really especially challenging during the pandemic, I think, right? I think there are two ways. Some people gain weight, some people lose weight. It depends on how you take that. In the beginning, especially of the pandemic, there was KMD is the usual KMD project is very prototype oriented. You have to make stuff, build stuff, and usually meet other people and work with them. And that is a model of education and collaboration that has been not only in KMD, but globally challenged through the pandemic. I think KMD has taken steps to help in that direction. Like in the very first semester, I remember the real project I'm part of, Embodied Media, Minamizawa Sensei and the faculty, they did anything they could to actually provide us with equipment to work from home, which was normally unusual, but under these circumstances, it was justified. And that created stress in a lot of us because this uncertainty, are we going to be able to, me including, right? Are we going to be able to finish what we're working on, deliver it on time, make our master's thesis or PhD thesis? I think I just feel mental and physical health, apart from the pandemic, is an ongoing struggle with PhD research, exactly because it's a bit of a marathon. I mean, master's studies tend to be 1 or 2 years, and usually it's a quick burst. You kind of, it's a flash, you do it quickly. But PhDs are minimum 3 years, very often 4 or 5 years, depending on the kind of research that you do. And it's usually something you do alone. It's usually something that, even if you're a team, your individual work is a load that cannot be compared to a master's degree. It's much more than that. And I think developing the resilience to go through that, funding is always an issue, which in KMD is, I would say, not so much of an issue during a PhD. Will you have access to the resources that you need to do what you want? But I think connecting, with other people is the most important part in that, realizing that you're not going through that by yourself. It is a common deal and very common unfortunately, in PhD circles, specifically this emotional and physical strain. And I would say from my personal experience, it's also very important to know when to take a step back, listen to yourself, acknowledging that you're lost at that moment, and it's okay to be lost. It's part of the process. It's not something that's you need to be worried about. And I think the moment we take that step back and try to see the big picture of what we're working on, things start getting unlocked and we can move on. Exactly, because PhD is about focusing very, very specifically most of the time in something that most people around you won't understand. And sometimes we lose connection with reality when doing that. It's easy to get absorbed. So I think it's important to always just take a step back, connect with the community, which in KMD, it's there. It's important to be open about those topics and take your time while doing that. And above all, enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's not worth putting the effort in something so big, I think. Yeah, that would be my advice in that, I think.
Yeah, and I also feel like maybe it is common for us, like we all have a short period or long period that we feel lost or feel struggled about our research. So I think it's okay to like feel lost for some times, but you will learn a lot of things and also learn how to think about it, to actually doing a research during that period. And so I think I just want to say that before you start doing your PhD, you need to be prepared. So you actually need to contribute at least to your research field, like to finish it. So it's kind of a totally different thing, like of the experience of all your experience like you had in bachelor or your master's. So you actually, yes, just like Harry said, you need to focus on a very specific field, a very specific field, like to how to like land your research. And but yeah, if you feel lost, we have a lot of helps from the faculty and from other KMC students. So there's always someone like kind of hold your back. So if you need them, they will be there. That's the good thing I feel like from the KMD.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I think one more thing for those who are interested in joining KMD in this COVID-19 era is that you need to think about if you cannot come to Japan. So as far as I know, there are some doctoral students in my real project in Kyoto. They are still not in Japan yet. Since Japanese government, they are not accepting foreign students for a very long time. I think they just started.
Yeah.
Started accepting students entering Japan this month. But there could be policy changes if there's some kind of new variants in the future. I think for those who are thinking joining KMD, you need to think about that. If you cannot travel to Japan, will you joining KMD still? So I think you should think about it.
Definitely, that's a pretty good point, I think, because I came to know people online which I've never met in person. Not during my batch. My batch in master's wasn't affected, but during my PhD, I met master's students online who are, I think, graduating in a few months and hadn't had the chance to come to Japan. And I think that's limiting their experience because not only because of access to equipment and prototyping and resources, but because of actually being in Japan, being inspired and influenced by what they see here. I think both Silvana and I mentioned that too, that we consciously chose Japan exactly because it's very different than our cultures and where we come from. And we felt that was invigorating and challenging, I think, as well. And I think part of starting at KMD is life in Japan too. I think that really changes most of us and gives us new inspiration and new directions. But hopefully this seems to be starting to change at the moment after 2 years of pandemic. It seems that right now the government of Japan is opening again for students. foreign students. And let's hope there won't be any other bumps along the way with the pandemic or other variants. It seems that things will go normal, hopefully, from now on. Definitely. I just wanted, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no. I just was thinking that about the difference between, for example, you, Harry, that you had the master, and then you entered the PhD. So, or maybe like people that has lived KMD before the pandemic and after the pandemic. In my case, I entered when it was already the pandemic. So that's what I've experienced, and I feel we could also talk about that.
That's a very good point, I think. I often get that from some students who join in the PhD, and we talk about that. I think the masters, definitely, first of all, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, it's a different story because KMD is a hive, is a buzzing place. Especially during the master's degree, you're on site, on campus all the time in one of the studios, be it the media studio or the hacking studio or one of the labs of the real projects, actually hands-on working on things, meeting people, having meetings with students, discussing, building. It's a very real and live process, and that's what makes it super engaging. A lot of that went away with the pandemic in the beginning, and that made collaboration very difficult, and it really changed the experience. And as far as hopefully it's coming back now, gradually, KMD is sticking to the rules drafted by the Ministry of Health of Japan. And as the pandemic has been going like this, we've been having regulations, limiting the number of people that can be on campus at times, but always with the maximum flexibility, allowed, considering the safety first, I think. But the other topic you mentioned, Silvana, between KMD and masters and PhD, I think really having had the masters here can help. I'm not saying that you need to have the masters to go on PhD and KMD, but exactly because you get to, you have the chance to get involved in many different projects in a short period of time. Master's projects are usually smaller, more like exercises in comparison to a PhD, and different people, and maybe also talk with different professors. Then by the time your PhD comes, maybe you have already a kind of good understanding or image of how this school works, how the environment works, how collaboration works in KMD. I suppose the pandemic on top of that makes it even more difficult to meet people and mingle with them and collaborate with them. So I can realize how having your first year in PhD without having had the master's first can feel daunting, and that you're lost. I felt that like that too, having my first year of the PhD during the pandemic, even after having had the master's here. I think, again, as you said before, it's very important being proactive, exactly because you will get, it's kind of a ask and you will receive deal, because people will not actively guide you because you're supposed to find your way yourself. If you're the kind of person that expects to be told what's the next step, then you will have a problem with that mentality. And KMD really helps people shift from expecting, a manual in doing things, in actually writing the manual themselves, and opening up, as I said before, carving the path themselves. And I think this is a process that starts kind of bottom up, like by discussing with your peers, understanding the capabilities and limitations and what you want to do. And then keep a steady, it's important to keep a steady contact with your advisor, and also your research plan, right? Knowing, have a roadmap. Even if it changes, you have to have a roadmap. It's difficult in this time to have that roadmap because a lot of its parts are uncertain. You want to do something and you don't know if it can be done because of the current situation. But that's part of the struggle, I think. That's part of a PhD in any case.
Yeah, so just don't isolate yourself.
That would be the number one advice, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Remain in contact and be in touch with people and openly talk about the challenges you face, because that's the only way to go forward, I think.
Yeah.
we're almost out of time, wrapping up, I think. I don't see any more questions also in the chat. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you've enjoyed the conversation, and feel free to reach out if you have any more questions.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Thank
Thank
you.
everyone for joining today's session.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.